The cabal is being systematically dismantled, so quote, just watch as it unfolds, Pentagon says. BenjaminFulford.net, July 20, 2015. This is what a top Pentagon person has to say about the ongoing takedown of the Khazarian Mafia. Quote, just watch as it unfolds. You will be tempted to get a pitchfork ready here and there, but just leave it in the closet. All should be accomplished without a shot being fired, if everything goes according to plan. End quote. The key event to trigger all this was the deal between Russia, England, China, France, and the United States, Germany, and Iran to ensure Iran had the right to peacefully develop nuclear power without developing nuclear bombs. The fact of the matter is, according to two members of the Iranian royal family, that the Bush family sold neutron bomb-tipped nuclear missiles to Iran years ago. The Iranians tried to give the weapons back to the Obama regime, but were rebuffed, according to senior CIA sources. In any case, the Iran nuclear accord means that a 30-year-old campaign by the Khazarian Mafia and their slave politicians in Washington and Tel Aviv to use Iran to start a world war has ended. There is a huge ongoing attempt by the Khazarian Mafia in Washington to try to overturn the agreement with Iran, but senators and congressmen who try to betray their own people will find themselves facing criminal charges of treason and accepting bribes from Israel, a foreign country. Now, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter is visiting Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan to, quote, read the riot act, according to Pentagon sources. What Carter is going to tell war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu is that now the Iranian nuclear issue has been settled. Russia, the Vatican, the Pentagon, the EU, the Chinese, etc. are demanding that Israel dismantle its own rogue nuclear program, the sources say. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the deal, quote, will contribute to fighting terrorism in the Middle East, as well as, quote, assisting in strengthening global and regional security, global nuclear non-proliferation, and, quote, the creation in the Middle East of a zone free from weapons of mass destruction. These public statements from Putin were backed by a Russian White Dragon Society member who said, quote, Russia is not going to take over from the United States as protector of Israel, because it is not in our interests to do so. Damn. The push against the Khazarian Mafia is a U.S. military-industrial complex and Russian co-production that has forced House slave acting President Obama to read an entirely new script. The Chinese are taking a passive but supportive role in this campaign. Chinese and Pentagon sources say there is now a big push to either deny Netanyahu a visa to visit the UN in September or else to arrest him for war crimes when he arrives, multiple sources say. The same is true for many members of the Saudi rogue regime. Furthermore, the Pentagon and its allies are pushing for an end to U.S. military aid to Israel because it is against U.S. law to send arms to a country, i.e. Israel, that is going against the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Not only that, recently the Israelis have been actively using or trying to use nuclear weapons in Syria, Yemen, the Ukraine, and elsewhere. However, for years the Pentagon has been putting back doors into weapons they have sold to Israel and Saudi Arabia, meaning they can and are being neutralized when needed. Senior members of the Khazarian Mafia for years have been trying to co-opt the Chinese by selling them Western military technology and offering them the chance to, quote, rule the world, so long as the Khazarians can be their bankers. However, the Chinese are fully aware it was the Khazarians who were behind the Opium Wars and who armed Japan so that it would invade China and steal their gold. The result is that the BRICS alliance The Vatican, Europe, the Pentagon, and most world power centers are now clearly aligned against the Khazarian mafia. The Saudi Arabians already got the message and arrested 421 members of the Khazarian fake ISIS terror group just prior to Carter's visit to show they were willing to flip against the Khazarians. The same is true of Nigeria, where top military brass have been purged of officers who accepted money from the Khazarians to finance the obscurantist and violent Boko Haram books are banned movement. In the United States, meanwhile, a bizarre news item put out claimed that George Bush Sr., quote, broke a bone in his neck, but that he was, quote, in fair condition. TheGuardian.com. According to Pentagon sources, Bush was attacked because his CIA drug mafia has allowed Joaquim El Chapo Guzman to escape from a high-security prison just before he was to be extradited to the United States and forced to testify against the drug-dealing branch of the CIA. However, a senior CIA source who actually worked with Bush said, quote, Bush has been dead for months. The Pentagon is now on the warpath against the drug-dealing faction of the CIA, but unless they legalize and regulate drugs, they will find it a losing battle. When we see Bush-Clinton crime gang bosses like Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush publicly arrested and perp-walked on charges of murder, etc., then we will know the purge has really begun to bite the bone. In any case, the Khazarian mafia is continuing to bluster and threaten. The most outrageous recent move has been the establishment of a so-called Jewish tribunal that is going to try Pope Francis. Oh, bullshit. Here is a part of their letter, quote, because the Vatican recognized the organization known as the Palestinian Authority as a nation, and has begun to refer to it as a nation in its documents. His Honor has named the head of said authority as an angel of peace, and it was explained by a spokesman for the Vatican that his intention was to encourage Abu Mazen to advance towards peace. These actions, to our great dismay, are consistent with a long series of actions and stances that are as in the days of Roman Catholic religion that swore to prosecute Israel because we refused to accept their Messiah as the Messiah of Israel, end quote. The self-appointed court, quote, shall judge the Vatican and place responsibility on the Vatican for all the outcomes of its actions. BreakingIsraelNews.com. We know that in recent years the Khazarians have made several threats to attack Rome with nuclear weapons, and this letter is yet another veiled threat by these superstitious fanatics to do the same thing. These people, by their own words, claim they are the same group who condemned Jesus Christ to death. The problem they face this time is that there is no equivalent to the Roman army, such as the Pentagon, left for them to manipulate into carrying out their will. In any case, it is a historical and genetic fact that Ashkenazi Jews originated in Central Asia, and that the Palestinians are the genuine descendants of the inhabitants of the ancient nation of Judea. The message to the Europeans who have been brainwashed into Babylonian Satan worship disguised as Judaism, i.e. Talmudic Jews, is that, quote, the truth shall set you free. More and more revelations about the mass brainwashing of Europeans using ancient human slave-herding texts will be coming out over the coming months as humanity is finally freed from the long nightmare of Satan-worshipping Hisko's human sheep herding. While the worldwide takedown of the Khazarian Mafia is expected to accelerate over the coming months, other world events also need to be examined. One big issue has been the Japanese government's decision to allow the Japanese armed forces to participate in defensive overseas military campaigns. This is part of an ongoing Pentagon move to try to create genuine world peace by joining all the world's defense forces into a single planetary defense and peacekeeping organization. The Russians, Vietnamese, Japanese, Australians, and others already are in agreement with this. This force will not be used for illegal colonial wars of aggression and occupation. Nonetheless, the Chinese, Indians, and others are waiting for international organizations like the UN and the World Court to stop being instruments of Western imperialism and to become genuine representatives of the people of the world before they are willing to cede any more sovereignty to supranational organizations such as a world peacekeeping force. In other words, there is a genuine interest in world peace, ending poverty, stopping environmental destruction, and starting a new age, but there is no consensus for a fascist new world order. There is also a lot going on that cannot be reported at this time. However, Illuminati Grand Master Alexander Romanov has been freed from involuntary incarceration in a Japanese mental hospital for the second time. This was a result of high-level pressure placed on the Japanese government and shows that a fundamental power shift has taken place here. In other words, the Khazarians have lost control of Japan. There are also meetings taking place this week involving the Chinese, the Russians, the various martial arts societies, the Illuminati, the White Dragon Society, the Freemasons, and other groups. These groups all want to return the control of the financial system to the people.